good evening. Or perhaps, given the hour, the headlines, and the hushed construction happening just beyond the edge of your awareness, good luck. Because tonight we are not discussing a policy. We are not debating a border. We are not arguing over paperwork, visas, or legality. Tonight we are talking about architecture. You see, governments reveal their intentions not through speeches, but through what they build when they think no one is watching. And right now, the United States government is building something very carefully, very quietly, and very quickly. They call it TITUS, Territorial Integrity of the United States, a name chosen no doubt by someone who understands that tyranny never introduces itself honestly. It arrives draped in acronyms and patriotism, insisting it is here to protect you, while measuring how easily you can be contained. Let me explain. The contract. Once upon a time, October to be precise, CNN reported that the Department of Homeland Security was funneling $10 billion through the U.S. Navy to construct a nationwide network of migrant detention centers. $10 billion. Already staggering, already alarming, already unnecessary if this were merely about border management. But that number was a lie of omission. Because weeks ago, with almost no media coverage and even less public scrutiny, that contract ceiling didn't just increase, it exploded. From $10 billion to $55 billion. Not through Congress, not through debate, but through a military procurement mechanism designed for war zones. The Worldwide Expeditionary Multiple Award Contract, WEXMAC, a system meant to rapidly deploy infrastructure to hostile, unstable regions of the world. I want you to sit with that. The United States, your home, has now been functionally reclassified as an expeditionary theater. And when the military labels a place an expeditionary theater, it means one thing: normal rules no longer apply. The temporary lie, we're told these facilities will be soft-sided, tense, temporary, humane. History has heard that word before. Temporary camps, temporary detentions, temporary suspensions of rights, temporary like Guantanamo, temporary like Japanese internment, temporary like every injustice that quietly overstayed its welcome and became permanent through apathy. According to sources familiar with the project, these facilities are designed to hold up to 10,000 people each. Louisiana, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Indiana, Utah, Kansas, not border towns, not ports of entry, American communities. And these aren't shelters. They are self-contained cities. Cities with industrial kitchens. Cities with closed medical tents. Cities with biohazard waste incinerators. Ask yourself why a temporary immigration facility needs the capacity to process medical waste at scale. Ask yourself why it needs force protection equipment, earth-filled defensive barriers, 8-foot Connex box walls, weather-resistant guard towers. Why does a civil administrative process require fortifications? Because this is not about paperwork. It is about control. The ghost network. Pablo Manriquez calls it a ghost network, and he's right. Because under WEXMAC, the government doesn't need to announce locations in advance. They don't need to invite bids. They don't need to warn communities. They issue task orders. And overnight, literally overnight, a detention city can materialize anywhere in the country. A warehouse becomes a prison. A vacant lot becomes a camp. A quiet town becomes complicit. By the time the press arrives, the fences are already up. By the time the courts respond, the buses have already come and gone. By the time the public notices, the beds are already full. That is not an accident. That is the design. Now let's talk about what makes this moment different, more dangerous, more urgent. In the span of mere weeks, 3 U.S. citizens are dead following encounters with immigration agents. Not suspects, not combatants, citizens. And did the system pause? Did it reflect? Did it slow down? No, it accelerated. When a government responds to death not with restraint, but with expansion, it tells you exactly how much life is worth in its calculations. And for those saying, if you're not a migrant, you have nothing to fear, allow me to remind you. Every machine built for them eventually gets tested on you. Ask the protesters kettled into vans. Ask the journalists charged with crimes for recording. Ask the January 6th rioters who were told they were patriots, until they were disposable. Power does not care about loyalty. It cares about obedience. Bloomberg reports that ICE has already begun purchasing warehouses in nearly 24 remote communities, each designed to hold thousands of detainees, the largest expansion of detention capacity in U.S. history. And people are noticing. Protests in New Hampshire, Utah, Texas, Georgia, Maryland. In Salt Lake City, a family business publicly refused to sell after public backlash. In San Antonio, a contractor tour was canceled because citizens showed up uninvited. That's the real fear, not migrants. Witnesses. Which is why this infrastructure is designed to outlast news cycles, administrations, and outrage. With 3 years of funding already secured and the Navy acting as a financial laundering mechanism, DHS doesn't need permission anymore. It has momentum. And momentum, once institutionalized, is very hard to stop. Senator Chris Van Hollen called these facilities obscene, inhumane, illegal. He is correct, but legality has never stopped power before. Only resistance has. So the question tonight is not whether this violates the Constitution. The question is, why does a free country need concentration camps it refuses to name? Why does democracy require secrecy? Why does law require fortresses? Why does order require incinerators? And most importantly, how many tents must rise before we admit that what's being built is not a solution, but a warning? Because here's the truth they hope you won't say out loud. A government that can detain millions without transparency, can detain thousands without cause, and can detain hundreds without names. First they build the camps, then they expand the definitions. Then they ask who's really an American. And by the time you answer, the gate is already closed. So remember this moment. Remember the silence. Remember the contracts signed in your name. Because masks fade, but the echo of a free voice endures.